What's up guys, me Guy Vaz here, back with another video. Are you a young Christian who is just sick and tired of your atheist friends challenging your faith and trying to prove to you that God doesn't exist? Well, this is the perfect video for you! And today we're going to be talking about the most overpowered arguments for the existence of God. And when I mean overpowered, I don't mean it's invincible. You know, there are counter arguments to these arguments. But the casual atheist or agnostic really won't know how to argue these points. So pretty much it's overpowered in that sense. So let's start with the first argument, and the first argument is the cosmological argument, specifically the contingency argument in the cosmological argument. This argument was first presented by Saint Thomas Aquinas, a philosopher and priest in the 13th century. He pretty much presented that everything in the universe is contingent on something for its existence. Pretty much saying that everything that exists must be contingent of something. So it is possible, well, not really possible, it's true that everything in the universe did not exist at one point, and the universe itself didn't exist at one point. So there was a time that everything just didn't exist. For example, your car. At one point in time, your car didn't exist. Or you just look outside, that tree that you see, well, at one point in time, that tree didn't exist. And look, even most scientists would agree that there was one point in time where the universe did not exist. And it's extremely important to know that everything that exists is contingent of something for its existence. So if there's one point that the universe didn't exist, that means that the universe is contingent on something. So Thomas Aquinas pretty much says that there must be a necessary being. That means this being is not contingent on anything. And this being is what we call God. Okay, let's simplify what I just said. So everything in the world is contingent. It can exist or cannot exist. If things do not exist, that means there must have been a time when this thing did not exist. So if everything in the world cannot exist, that means there must have been a time where everything did not exist. But things exist now. So there's something on which we all depend on that brought us into this existence. And that something must be necessary and not contingent. And that thing that we call is God. And most atheists that I have seen know that this argument is one of the strongest arguments for the existence of God. But a counter argument to this would be that just because there are things in the universe that are contingent of things, that doesn't mean the universe itself is contingent of things. And also they would probably say, well, we don't know if there was actually a beginning. They would just say that, well, the universe is just a fact. It was always here. It always existed. But honestly, even most scientists wouldn't even agree on that point. And I just feel like it's kind of running away from that argument. But let's get into the second argument, and that is the teleological argument. I think I said that right. And this argument is also presented by St. Thomas Aquinas. So he presented this argument like this. Everything in the world, in the universe, has a purpose or a goal or slash goal, you know? For example, in the laws of nature, a flower, when it's growing, it goes up. Or the laws of gravity. Everything that must come up must come down. You always see some sort of purpose within the universe and within nature itself. So let's say this, that things that are not intelligent cannot fulfill its purpose or goal without an intelligent being. And Thomas Aquinas used this example. He used an example of a bow and arrow. The bow and arrow by itself is just sticks, pretty much. It's useless. It can't fulfill its purpose. But once an archer comes involved and actually knows how to use a bow and arrow, then the bow and arrow goes and fulfills its purpose. So you see, that's what I'm pretty much trying to say. Something unintelligent cannot fulfill its purpose without an intelligent being. But when we look at nature, I mean, nature is mostly unintelligent. So if every unintelligent thing needs an intelligent being to fulfill its purpose, our universe itself is an unintelligent being, yet it's fulfilling its purpose with all the designs and intricacies. That must mean there must be an intelligent being behind this universe. So why don't I just simplify it then? So when we see the world has order and regularity and purpose and beauty. So if we look at those objects with those properties, we can infer that it was designed. And the world itself has the properties that we said in point 1. So if the world was designed, then that means there must be a designer behind it, and that designer is what we call God. Now the counter argument to this would be, well, what if it was all by chance? And honestly, I just really think it's a dumb counter argument, because they would say, well, let's say we have an infinite amount of time, and in that infinite amount of time there could be a chance that the whole world and its whole design would eventually come up in that infinite amount of time. Counter argument to that would be, we never see any order within randomness. Well, you can ask them this: tell me a time where randomness and chaos gave us order. And they would never be able to answer that question, because we never see it. It's impossible. But anyway, I want to mention an honorable mention before we go to our third and last one, and that is the ontological argument. Now, I don't want to get super in depth with it, but let me just simplify the ontological argument. So pretty much the argument is like this: that God is the greatest being that we can ever conceive. When you think of the greatest being, the greatest thing out there, we think of, well, God. So now think of two beings, one that actually exists and the other that doesn't. So let's say, for example, a pencil. There is a real pencil in front of me, right? But there is a greater pencil than what I'm thinking about the pencil in front of me. Which one is actually greater? And most people would say, well, it's the actual pencil, not just the thought of the greater pencil. So pretty much they would say, well, if God doesn't exist, that means we can think of a being greater than God. But we can't, because the greatest being ever is God. Now, I think this could be a convincing argument for some, but I mean, let's be honest real quick, if you brought that argument to one of your atheist friends at school, they would just throw that away and be like, what are you talking about, bro? Something in the mind and something in real life, that doesn't really make sense. They would just trash on the argument and they wouldn't really think about it too much. So that's why I kind of put it as an honorable mention, and I didn't really put it on the list, but it can convince some people. So now let's get into the third and last argument, and that is the moral argument. So what is morality? Well, morality is pretty much principles on which we know what is good or bad, or good and evil, or right or wrong. So with moral facts and duties, we can decipher these things using our rationality and our reason. So that means that moral facts and duties, well, they exist. But because moral arguments and disagreements happen so much among humans, so that means that moral facts and duties are not grounded in human rationality and reason. Pretty much what I'm trying to say is that humans are not perfect moral beings. So that means we don't have perfect moral knowledge. So that means moral laws must be grounded on something unchanging that isn't contingent. So moral facts and duties are grounded in something necessary, in a necessary being or a necessary source. And that source we call God. So let me really simplify it here. So if God does not exist, then moral facts and duties do not exist. But moral facts and duties do exist. So therefore, God exists. Now that's really simplifying it. But a counter argument to this would be on the second point, that moral facts and duties don't actually exist, that everything is just subjective, that morality is subjective. And honestly, I think that's a very dangerous road to go down. Because think about it, if everything's subjective and morality is subjective, that means 400 years from now, murder can be okay, and in their mind, that means morality is okay, that murder is okay in their mind, because they think everything is subjective. But we all know that murder is not okay. Well, how do we know that's not okay? Society didn't do it. We always have disagreements. We always have, that's what I'm trying to say. We always have disagreements. We're always disagreeing on moral stuff. That means that morality cannot be based on us humans. It must be based on something else. And that something else is God. So guys, what do you think of those 3 arguments? If there's any arguments that I left out, please let me know down in the comments below. Alright guys, so please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate the growth that's happening on this channel. I really appreciate you guys. And as I always say at the end of my videos, God bless and see you later.